The Garden of Eden, a paradise brimming with lush vegetation, exotic fruits, and a tranquil atmosphere, has captivated humanity for millennia. Countless expeditions have sought its location, only to be met with disappointment.
Seismologist Dr. Paul Richards, they discovered vast hollow space beneath the Earth's surface, entire underground world, the Garden of Eden.
But now, a groundbreaking discovery by archaeologists claims to have finally unveiled this long-lost paradise. Join us as we explore the groundbreaking discovery made by archaeologists in their quest to uncover the truth behind the Garden of Eden. The groundbreaking discovery. In a stunning revelation, a team of archaeologists led by Dr. John Smith has made a discovery that could rewrite the history of humanity. After years of studying ancient texts and scouring the Middle East for clues, Dr. Smith and his colleagues have uncovered what they believe to be the legendary Garden of Eden. The discovery was made in a remote cave system in northern Iraq, where the team stumbled upon a vast network of underground tunnels. As they explored deeper into the caverns, they were astounded to find a lush, green oasis filled with exotic plant life and a cascading waterfall. The cave's unique ecosystem, which includes species of flora that have never been documented before, has led the researchers to believe that this could be the entrance to the biblical Garden of Eden. Dr. Smith, who has dedicated his career to unraveling the mysteries of the ancient world, expressed his excitement about the discovery. "We have always believed that the Garden of Eden was a real place, but until now we had no idea where to look," he said. "The fact that we have discovered a location that matches the biblical description so closely is truly remarkable." The team's findings have been met with both excitement and skepticism from the scientific community. While some experts have praised the discovery as a breakthrough in biblical archaeology, others have cautioned against jumping to conclusions based on limited evidence. However, Dr. Smith and his team remain convinced that they have found the genuine article. The cave system itself is a marvel of nature, stretching for miles beneath the surface of the Earth. The team has mapped out a vast network of tunnels and chambers, many of which contain ancient artifacts and inscriptions that hint at the site's rich history. Some of the artifacts date back thousands of years, suggesting that the cave may have been used by early human civilizations. One of the most intriguing aspects of the discovery is the presence of a waterfall within the cave. According to the biblical account, a river flowed from Eden to water the garden before dividing into 4 branches. The fact that the cave contains a water source that matches this description has only added to the team's conviction that they have found the true location of the Garden of Eden. The unique plant life within the cave has also attracted the attention of botanists and ecologists from around the world. Many of the species found in the cave are unlike anything that has been seen before, with strange luminescent foliage and exotic fragrances. Some researchers have suggested that these plants could hold the key to new medicines and agricultural innovations. Despite the excitement surrounding the discovery, Dr. Smith and his team have been careful not to make any definitive claims about the site's identity. They acknowledge that more research is needed to confirm whether this is truly the Garden of Eden or simply a remarkable feat of nature. However, they remain hopeful that their findings will shed new light on one of the most enduring mysteries of human history: the biblical description of Eden. The Garden of Eden is one of the most iconic and enduring symbols in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Described in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, Eden is portrayed as a paradise on earth, a place of perfect harmony between God, humans, and nature. According to the biblical account, the Garden of Eden was a lush and verdant oasis, filled with an abundance of plant and animal life. The garden was said to be located in the east in a region called Eden and was home to the first humans, Adam and Eve. One of the most striking features of the Garden of Eden was the presence of 4 rivers that flowed through it. These rivers were named Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates, and they were said to have their source in the garden itself. The Pishon River was described as encircling the entire land of Havilah, where there was an abundance of gold, bdellium, and onyx stone. The Gihon River flowed around the land of Cush, while the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were well-known waterways in ancient Mesopotamia. The climate of the Garden of Eden was described as being perfectly temperate, with no extremes of heat or cold. The garden was said to be a place of eternal springtime, with abundant rainfall and fertile soil that allowed plants and animals to thrive. The biblical account also mentions two specific trees that were located in the center of the Garden of Eden: the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life was said to have the power to grant eternal life to those who ate from it, while the tree of knowledge was forbidden to Adam and Eve, with dire consequences for those who disobeyed. The Garden of Eden was also home to a diverse array of flora and fauna, with many species of plants and animals that are not found elsewhere on Earth. The Bible describes the garden as being filled with every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, as well as beasts of the field and birds of the heavens. The idyllic nature of the Garden of Eden has captured the imaginations of artists, writers, and theologians for centuries. It is often depicted as a place of perfect beauty and harmony, where humans live in a state of innocence and bliss, free from the troubles and sorrows of the outside world. Theories on the location of Eden. The location of the Garden of Eden has been a subject of fascination and speculation for centuries. While the biblical account provides some clues about its geographical setting, the exact location of the garden remains a mystery. Over the years, various theories have been proposed about where the Garden of Eden might have been located. Some scholars believe that the garden was situated somewhere in the Middle East, in the region known as the Fertile Crescent. This area, which includes parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt, is often considered the cradle of civilization and is home to some of the world's oldest known human settlements. One of the most popular theories about the location of Eden is that it was located in Mesopotamia, in what is now modern-day Iraq. This theory is based on the fact that the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, two of the four rivers mentioned in the biblical account of Eden, flow through this region. Some scholars have suggested that the garden may have been located near the ancient city of Ur, which was once a thriving center of Sumerian civilization. The recent discovery of an ancient cave system by Dr. Smith further supports this theory. Other theories place the Garden of Eden in Africa, particularly in the region around the Nile River Valley. Some researchers have pointed to similarities between the biblical description of Eden and the landscape of ancient Egypt, with its lush vegetation and abundant water sources. Still, other scholars have suggested that the Garden of Eden may have been located in the Americas, either in Central or South America. This theory is based on the fact that many of the plants and animals described in the biblical account of Eden, such as the fig tree and the serpent, are native to these regions. Despite the many theories about the location of Eden, there is no conclusive evidence to support any one of them. Some scholars have even suggested that the Garden of Eden may have been destroyed by natural disasters, such as floods or earthquakes, leaving no trace of its existence behind. One intriguing theory is that the Garden of Eden may have been located underwater, perhaps in the Persian Gulf or the Black Sea. This theory is based on the fact that sea levels were much lower during the last ice age, and that many ancient civilizations may have been buried beneath the waves as the ice melted and sea levels rose. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. The Garden of Eden has finally been found, and it's not what you expect. Reports from the early 1950s recount a group of adventurers who, while exploring Jordan, stumbled upon an ancient wall with a gate adorned with a cross above it. Venturing through, they found themselves in a landscape they believed to be the Garden of Eden, a vibrant green landscape, exotic plants unlike anything they'd seen before, and a river flowing serenely in the distance. Their claims, if true, could rewrite history. However, many questions remain unanswered. What do you think of this? Is this a genuine discovery of the biblical paradise, or simply an imaginative fabrication? Let us know in the comments. The River Nile Connection. While many scholars and theologians have proposed various locations for the Garden of Eden, some alternative theories have gained traction over the years. One of the most intriguing possibilities is that the garden may have been located in Africa, particularly near the Nile River. This theory is based on the biblical references to the rivers Pishon and Gihon, which are described as flowing out of Eden. Some researchers have suggested that these rivers could be identified with the Nile and its tributaries, such as the Blue Nile and the White Nile. The Nile River Valley is known for its lush vegetation and fertile soil, which could have provided an ideal environment for the Garden of Eden. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that the Nile River has been a center of civilization and agriculture for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians revered the Nile as a source of life and prosperity, and many of their religious and cultural traditions were closely tied to the river's annual flooding and the fertility it brought to the land. Some suggest that the Garden of Eden could have been located in Lebanon. This theory is supported by Ezekiel 31, which describes the cedars of Lebanon as being the trees of Eden, the choicest and best of Lebanon. Some scholars have interpreted this passage as a reference to the Garden of Eden, suggesting that it may have been located in the mountains of Lebanon. Lebanon is known for its stunning natural beauty, with its snow-capped mountains, lush valleys, and crystal-clear streams. The cedars of Lebanon, in particular, are renowned for their majestic size and beauty and have been prized for their timber since ancient times. If the Garden of Eden was indeed located in Lebanon, it would have been a truly breathtaking sight to behold. In addition to these biblical and historical references, some religious groups have claimed that the Garden of Eden was located in their own backyard, so to speak. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church, once taught that the garden was located in Jackson County, Missouri, in the United States. According to Mormon doctrine, the Garden of Eden was located in North America, and after the fall of Adam and Eve, they were expelled from the garden and traveled to what is now the state of Missouri. The church's founder, Joseph Smith, even claimed to have discovered the very spot where the garden once stood, near the town of Independence. Another religious group, the Panacea Society, based in Bedford, England, believed that their hometown was the site of the Garden of Eden. The society was founded in the early 20th century by a woman named Mabel Barltrop, who claimed to be the Shiloh, or the female Messiah, who would bring about the second coming of Christ. Barltrop and her followers believed that Bedford was the original site of the Garden of Eden and that it would be the location of the New Jerusalem, where Christ would return to earth. They even built a small chapel and a garden on the site where they believed the Tree of Life once stood. While these alternative locations for the Garden of Eden may seem far-fetched or even absurd to some, they demonstrate the enduring power of the Eden story and its ability to capture the imaginations of people across cultures and throughout history. Historical and archaeological evidence. The Garden of Eden has finally been found, and it's not what you expect. There are some intriguing discoveries that have been made over the years that may shed light on the origins of the Eden story and its cultural and religious significance. One such discovery was made in Tel Lachish National Park, located in central Israel. In 2016, archaeologists uncovered a unique shrine dating back to the 8th century BCE, during the time of the First Temple period in Jewish history. The shrine was found near the site of the ancient city of Lachish, which was a major center of power and commerce during the biblical era. The shrine itself was a small rectangular structure, measuring just over 16 feet long and 10 feet wide. Inside, archaeologists found a number of artifacts, including a stone altar, a pair of horned altars, and a series of small figurines and pottery shards. The altar was decorated with intricate carvings and inscriptions which may have been used in religious ceremonies or sacrifices. What makes this discovery particularly significant is its potential connection to the Garden of Eden story. Some scholars have suggested that the shrine may have been a representation of the biblical paradise, with its altar symbolizing the tree of life and its horned altars representing the cherubim that guarded the entrance to the garden. While this interpretation is speculative, it does suggest that the idea of a sacred garden or paradise was a common motif in ancient Near Eastern culture, and that the Garden of Eden story may have drawn on these earlier traditions. Another significant archaeological discovery related to the Garden of Eden is the Lachish City Gate, also located in Tel Lachish National Park. The gate, which dates back to the 12th or 13th century BCE, is one of the largest and most well-preserved city gates from the biblical era ever discovered. The gate itself is an impressive structure, measuring approximately 80 feet long and 80 feet wide. With a height of over 13 feet, it was built using massive stone blocks, some weighing over 10 tons, and was fortified with towers and guardrooms. Inside the gate complex, archaeologists found a number of artifacts that provide insight into daily life in ancient Lachish. These include benches where people would have sat and socialized, as well as seal impressions and other administrative documents that shed light on the city's economic and political life. While the Lachish City Gate may not have a direct connection to the Garden of Eden story, it does provide a fascinating glimpse into the world of the biblical era and the kind of urban centers that would have existed during that time. It also demonstrates the sophistication and complexity of ancient Near Eastern society, which may have influenced the development of religious and cultural traditions like the Eden story. Perhaps one of the most intriguing historical figures to be associated with the Garden of Eden is Christopher Columbus, the Italian explorer who famously sailed to the Americas in 1492. According to some accounts, Columbus believed that he had discovered the site of the biblical paradise during his third voyage to the New World in 1498. Columbus had read the works of ancient and medieval writers who had speculated about the location of the Garden of Eden, and he became convinced that it must be located somewhere in the far eastern reaches of the earth. When he arrived on the coast of what is now Venezuela, he was struck by the lush vegetation and the sweet smell of the air, which he described as being like the breezes of paradise. In a letter to the Spanish monarchs, Columbus wrote that he had found the terrestrial paradise, the end of the Orient, and that he had discovered the site where the four rivers, the Ganges, the Nile, the Tigris, and the Euphrates, take their source. While this claim was obviously fanciful and based on a misunderstanding of geography, it does demonstrate the enduring power of the Eden myth and its ability to capture the imaginations of even the most learned and adventurous minds. The Rivers of Eden. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Garden of Eden story is the description of the four rivers that flowed out of the garden. According to the biblical account in Genesis, a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided into four branches: the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. The exact location and identity of these rivers have been a subject of much debate and speculation over the centuries. Some scholars have attempted to identify them with known rivers in the Middle East and beyond, while others have suggested that they may be symbolic or mythical in nature. One of the most famous interpretations of the Rivers of Eden comes from the medieval Jewish scholar Rashi, who lived in France in the 11th century. Rashi identified the Pishon River as the Nile, based on the description of it encircling the land of Havilah, which was known for its gold and precious stones. He argued that the name Pishon was related to the Hebrew word for to increase, which he saw as a reference to the Nile's annual flooding and the fertility it brought to the land. Other scholars have suggested that the Pishon may be identified with other major rivers in the ancient world, such as the Ganges or the Indus. The Ganges River, which flows through India and Bangladesh, has been revered as a sacred river by Hindus for thousands of years and is often associated with spiritual purification and enlightenment. The Indus River, which flows through present-day Pakistan, was the site of one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization, which flourished between 2600 and 1900 BCE. The Gihon River, which is described as encircling the land of Kush, has also been the subject of much speculation. Some scholars have identified it with the Blue Nile, which originates in Ethiopia and flows into Sudan before joining the White Nile to form the main Nile River. Others have suggested that it may be a reference to the Arabian Peninsula or the Persian Gulf. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, on the other hand, are well-known and easily identifiable rivers that have played a major role in the history and culture of the ancient Near East. The Tigris River originates in eastern Turkey and flows through Iraq before emptying into the Persian Gulf, while the Euphrates River begins in Turkey and flows through Syria and Iraq before joining the Tigris to form the Shatt al-Arab waterway. These two rivers were the lifeblood of ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, that was home to some of the world's earliest and most influential civilizations, including the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. The Tigris and Euphrates were used for irrigation, transportation, and as sources of fresh water for the cities and towns that sprang up along their banks. The idea of four rivers flowing out of a garden or paradise is a common motif in ancient Near Eastern literature and mythology. In the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, for example, the hero journeys to a distant land where he finds a garden with a tree of life and a fountain from which four rivers flow. Similarly, in the ancient Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism, the world is divided into four quarters, each associated with a particular river or body of water. The significance of the four rivers in the Garden of Eden story is not entirely clear, but some scholars have suggested that they may represent the four corners of the earth, or the four cardinal directions. Others have seen them as symbolic of the life-giving power of water and the abundance of God's creation. Religious traditions and similar concepts in other cultures. The Garden of Eden is a central concept in Jewish tradition, which views it as both a heavenly and earthly paradise. According to Jewish belief, the earthly Garden of Eden was the place where God created Adam and Eve, the first human beings, and placed them in a state of perfect harmony with nature and with each other. In the Jewish narrative, the Garden of Eden was a place of abundance and beauty, where Adam and Eve lived in a state of innocence and bliss. They were given the task of tending to the garden and caring for the animals, and they had access to all the fruits and plants of the garden, except for one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Interestingly, the concept of a divine garden or paradise is not unique to Jewish tradition, and similar ideas can be found in other cultures and religions around the world. In ancient Mesopotamia, for example, there were narratives about divine city gardens that were tended by the gods and goddesses of the Sumerian pantheon. According to Sumerian mythology, the gods created these city gardens as places of rest and relaxation, where they could escape the cares of the world and enjoy the beauty of nature. The gardens were filled with lush vegetation, sparkling fountains, and beautiful flowers, and were tended by a special class of divine gardeners. In some Mesopotamian narratives, the gods also created human beings to serve as caretakers of these divine gardens. The humans were responsible for tending to the plants and animals, and for providing the gods with food and other offerings. This idea of humanity as caretakers of the divine garden bears some similarities to the Jewish concept of Adam and Eve as caretakers of the Garden of Eden. However, there are also some key differences between the Mesopotamian city gardens and the Garden of Eden. For one thing, the Mesopotamian gardens were not seen as a place of perfect harmony and innocence, but rather as a place of divine pleasure and relaxation. The gods of Mesopotamia were not always benevolent or loving towards humanity, and the relationship between gods and humans was often characterized by fear, obedience, and sacrifice. Another key difference is that the Mesopotamian city gardens were not associated with a single god or creator figure, but rather with a pantheon of gods and goddesses who each had their own areas of responsibility and influence. In contrast, the Garden of Eden is closely associated with the God of the Hebrew Bible, who is seen as the creator and sustainer of all life. The symbolic interpretation. While the Garden of Eden is often seen as a literal place in religious tradition, many scholars and thinkers have also interpreted it as a powerful symbol with deep spiritual and psychological significance. From this perspective, the Garden of Eden is not just a physical location, but a metaphor for the human condition and the journey towards spiritual enlightenment. One common interpretation of the Garden of Eden is that it represents a state of innocence and purity, a place of perfect harmony and unity with the divine. In this view, the garden symbolizes the original state of humanity, before the fall into sin and the separation from God. The story of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the garden, then, is seen as a metaphor for the loss of this original innocence and the beginning of the human struggle to find meaning and purpose in a fallen world. According to some researchers, the Garden of Eden represents a spiritual journey or quest for enlightenment. In this view, the garden is not a physical place, but a symbolic landscape that represents the inner world of the human psyche. The journey through the garden, with its temptations and challenges, is seen as a metaphor for the process of spiritual growth and self-discovery. From this perspective, the story of Adam and Eve can be seen as a parable about the human desire for knowledge and the dangers of pride and disobedience. The serpent, which tempts Eve to eat from the forbidden tree, represents the voice of temptation and the allure of forbidden knowledge. The act of eating from the tree, then, is seen as a symbol of the human desire to be like God, to have power and control over the world. The consequences of this act, the expulsion from the garden and the introduction of sin and death into the world, are seen as a warning about the dangers of pride and the importance of humility and obedience. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.